Join me today for all the evidence you need that Prince Caspian is the best book of the Chronicles of Narnia, and one you need to go back and read if you somehow missed it. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things we enjoy. I'm Jim, the father of this show. I'm glad to have you here as I bring a book review episode to you today. If you enjoy this, be sure to give us that thumbs up like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so. And check out the show notes, all the other ways you can interact with my son Zach and I. So I'm here talking to you about Prince Caspian today. Here we go. Make sure the light hits it right. Which is, for the official list, the way C.S. Lewis wanted it, Book 2 in the Chronicles of Narnia, published in 1951. This is the genre of high fantasy, written with a focus as children's literature, so very approachable for a younger reader. Prince Caspian, like I said, second book in publication order, but if you go and buy the set now of the Chronicles of Narnia, 7 books, it comes off as the 4th one, because chronologically, that's how it falls into the story. Don't let that confuse you. If you've never read the Chronicles of Narnia, this is book 2, right behind The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as book 1. I read this book as the second book in the series back when I was somewhere around 4th grade. I'd been gifted the entire 7-book set by my parents, and I eagerly devoured it because I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, was captivated by the land of Narnia, and of course, I'm going to move right into the second book. I remember being a little confused when I started the story because, okay, here's the original protagonists. I remember the Pevensey siblings, Peter, Susan, Edmund, Lucy, and, they're getting sucked back into the land of Narnia. But it doesn't look like the Narnia I remember as a reader, and it doesn't look like it for them either. So at first you have no idea what's going on. You thought you did, but now you don't. But where Lewis takes the story from there is simply amazing. A really entertaining read, and I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I've returned to it many times, and upon rereads, it clearly has risen to my favorite of the entire Narnia series. The setting of this book mostly takes place in the land of Narnia, all across it, a number of locations throughout Narnia. It's a seemingly human land, but that's not the Narnia we remember. We will discover as we move through the book that it is still a magical land inhabited by talking animals and creatures of myth and fairy. In relation to the events that took place in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, these events occur after those. But to explain exactly when, it would be too spoilery, so I can't tell you more yet. But I give a 5 out of 5 for the setting that Lewis has created, bringing us back to a world we loved in that first book, but making it again fresh and new. It's still magnificent, but he kind of does a reset in a delightful way. This story is about the 4 Pevensey siblings as they're pulled back into Narnia, a place they're very happy to return to, only to discover it's no longer the place they remember. Turns out, while 1 year has passed for them since they came back from Narnia at the end of the last adventure, a lot more time has passed in the land of Narnia. And the place is not as they remember it, not at all. This is really 2 different stories that merge as you move further into the book. So first you've got the story of these 4 children, the former kings and queens of Narnia who reigned for many years, well into adulthood, only now to return again as children. And merging that with the story of Caspian, the rightful heir to the throne of Narnia, who has been usurped by his wicked uncle, who fits so many markers and tropes of wicked uncles. And we discover at this point of the story Caspian only being alive because he's been helped by the magical denizens of Narnia, who he rediscovers. I mean, they were all gone, it seemed. Well, that's because his uncle, the wicked King Myres, love that name, He worked to suppress these people and the magical past of Narnia, make that all just disappear. So, this really becomes the story of Caspian and the Narnians of old, the ones Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy would recognize about Narnia, rising up in rebellion against the tyrant and usurper Myraz. Not that he really gives them a choice in the matter, and how the four Pevensey children will come to play a role in that struggle, among other help that will also arise on both sides of the struggle. For the depth of this plot, wow, part of the glory of this narrative is how Lewis is able to reset the Pevensey kids in a logical, in world manner, growing them a little further while introducing a whole new cast of very interesting characters that we will come to quickly love and boo and enjoy doing so for all fresh new reasons. It's not an easy task when that first book had a clear and definitive ending. And here we go again, blending the old with the new, and delightfully so. I also value how C.S. Lewis begins with mystery in this story, as the Pevensey siblings have to puzzle out where they actually are when they get sucked into this world. They thought it was Narnia. It doesn't look like Narnia. And as they're puzzling things out, we as readers are right there with them. And it's a treat. It's fun to figure out. Finally, the way Lewis blends the old and new characters is magnificently done and leans into powerful themes and messages he's going to give through this story. I give a 5 out of 5 for his skill in making all of this work so well and in giving us such an interesting story with plenty of delightful little surprises along the way. These characters, well, the four original siblings are given back to us with great nuance. They are children, again, but ones who grew to adulthood in a previous time in Narnia. They spent like 15 years living in and ruling this land. Those experiences changed them for the better, but they are again children. So not everything stuck with them rock hard and solid. They're not adults walking around in child bodies. They are children. So Lewis does a great job of letting them be children in this story again, but demonstrating elements of the growth that they gained in book one. Perhaps most pronounced is the difference in Edmund's character, because wow, for much of book one, he sucked. Not at all anymore. Caspian himself is an amazing character and very relatable. As a reader, he's the character that most readers will most connect with. And for me, I connected to him far more than I ever did with the Pevensey children. This is probably part of why this book is my favorite in the series. King Myraz, delightfully dark character, the perfect foil, powerful and successful, seemingly doing right by his nephew Caspian while clearly advancing his own plans in the background. Lewis gives us every reason to enjoy cheering against this guy. There are many other characters to enjoy and value in Prince Caspian, but the three that stand out for me the most that I'll highlight are Dr. Cornelius, who serves as Caspian's tutor and mentor, but turns out to be much more than that. The dwarf Trumpkin, just an exceptionally written and entertaining character, who was perfectly played by Peter Dinklage in the 2008 Walt Disney adaptation. And Reepicheep, the valiant leader of the talking mice, which is an amazing element added into the Narnia story for this book, and given a reason why, which is very cool. Once again, Characters is going to get a 5 out of 5 rating from me. The various characters are all well written and bring both depth and entertainment value to the text. As for writing style, Lewis again writes the story like a grandfather, conversationally telling a story to his grandchildren, including occasionally breaking the fourth wall to just address us directly, usually to double down on a key takeaway that we're supposed to perceive as it's applicable to our own lives. His writing excellently paints the setting of Narnia with enough detail to capture our imagination while not boring us. That's a balance not every author achieves. The prose overall is straightforward easy to access, but interesting enough to still appeal to all ages. His pacing is brisk, not getting too lost in dialogue or pondering deep themes, instead giving us a nice balance of action, dialogue, and descriptive text. Something I particularly enjoy about Lewis's writing is how he can convey the serious themes of the narrative while regularly interjecting moments of levity, touches of humor. For example, through the banter between various characters. There's much to enjoy through the experience of reading this book. I give a 5 out of 5 to writing style. And one of the key reasons it definitely earns that 5 out of 5 for me is how impressive it is that this is, again, a clear Christian allegory. And as a Christian, I value that. But it still manages to simply be a compelling and enjoyable fantasy adventure story. Lewis does not beat you over the head with his Christian themes. Those parallels are clearly there. If you're looking for them, you see them, you love them. But if you're not Christian, this is still a fantastic fantasy story. Now, these themes and messages that I see in this book, there's quite a few, but here's some highlights. Good versus evil is an obvious one, and obviously that's a big part of most good fantasy stories. But he's got that theme worked into this story at various different levels that's quite interesting and well done. Another theme would be restoration and rebirth. Just because things have been forgotten and pushed aside doesn't mean they can't return and be restored or reborn, bringing a new day, good times once again. Then he's got the theme of faith and trust in a higher power. The world has a lot of problems that can feel overwhelming and impossible to overcome. Honestly, as a Christian, I struggle to know how some people get through life if they have nothing else to hold on to, because I rely on my faith and I get a lot of comfort and strength as I navigate challenges around me. This book urges us to remember we are not alone and that there is a divine presence just waiting for us to trust in him, to turn to him for guidance and strength. So again, that's leaning into the Christian allegorical elements of the story, but it's definitely a theme that's there that I appreciate. The last theme I'll highlight is the conflict between the old and new. Things change. Times move on. Transforming to newer ways and newer things can be painful and hard. The conflict rises and is showcased in this story between discerning, okay, which new things are new and improved and we should cling to versus which old things are still worth keeping around and shouldn't just be dismissed. New does not always mean better. It's true. For warnings, well, as this story is written to be good for children, there's not much to warn you about, but I could give you a few mild trigger elements. There are certainly battle scenes, some moments of violence in the story. They tend not to be overly graphic, and we're not trying to freak out children and give them nightmares. The battle scenes focus on the event and the consequence more than the nitty-gritty details. But still, there is battle. People get hurt. There are themes of betrayal that could hit too close to home for some people. Obviously, as a Christian allegory, some elements may not be to the preference of some readers. Finally, there are elements of dark magic and the supernatural in here. In one particular scene, it hits kind of hard, and that may be too much for the more sensitive of readers. For my rating, no surprise. 5 out of 5. This is my favorite of the Chronicles of Narnia. The storyline, far superior to the original book, and it directly sets the stage for 3 of the 5 remaining stories. It's everything that was good about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then takes it higher. I strongly recommend this novel. Well, that's what I have for you today. Do you have thoughts on Prince Caspian? Have you read it and want to add your comments to mine? Put them down in the comment box. I'll read and respond. If you have any particular thoughts on anything I said here today, whether you agree or disagree, I'd love to see that too. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video. I hope I'm inspiring you to dig this book out again and check out the series. It's worthy. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you next time.